Hello, I'm Dr. Pierre Simon, and it's great being back with you as we continue in our series, Parenting with Purpose. I hope you're enjoying the series as we're talking about, what's going on today with childhood. And today, in particular, we'll be talking about some interesting subjects. But first, let's talk a little more about the book, Unmasking Addiction. I have to advertise my book and get it out there as much as I can, and this is a good opportunity to do that. Understanding addiction requires us to look beyond the surface and address the core issues that fuel addiction. It's growing. It's becoming a worse problem as we see more and more people escaping in order to cope with the stress of what's going on in the world. And let me tell you, the stress of what's going on in the world is not getting better. It's going to increase. And as it increases, more and more people are going to be escaping. Hopefully they'll find healthy escapes, but unfortunately it's unhealthy escapes. And addictions can occur. And when addictions occur, how do we treat it? How do we cope with it? And if you're in recovery, how do you stay in recovery? And that's what the book is all about on unmasking addiction. Addiction is not just a battle of the body or mind, but a struggle within the very spirit of a person. So please keep that in mind. If you know someone dealing with addictions, or if you'd like to learn more about it, get your copy of the book, and I'm sure it'll be helpful. I'm working on a workbook with my good friend Bryson Davis, and we'll have that out at some point and make it even more useful. Well, today, children, cognitive development and screen media is our subject today. I get that all the time, parents asking me, what do we do about this? They just stay on the computer and this and that. Well, yeah, it's becoming a problem. So exploring the impact of technology on childhood learning and growth is part of the subject today as we discuss screen media and what's going on there. There's so much to talk about in this. Certainly we're not going to address everything today. We'll be talking about some of the introduction of it, and then next time we're going to get into some more details. But let's start off with something humorous. As I always say with parenting, we have to keep a good sense of humor. Why did the toddler refuse to play with the tablet? When I first read that, I thought, tablet, play with tab. Yeah, they mean the computer thing, that little square. Okay, So us old guys, we're still kind of stuck with the paper stuff. Why did the toddler refuse to play with the tablet? Because it didn't know how to share, take turns, or build a fort out of couch cushions. After all, even the best screen can't replace a good old-fashioned game of hide and seek. Now pause for a minute and think about that. Infants, little children, what do they want? What do they need? And in this little portion of humor here, it's telling us a lot. They need play. They need activity together. They need you to smile at them. They need you to hold them. They need you to talk to them, and so on. We're going to get into some more details on that next time, but if that's what they need, that's what they're wanting, and they're going to cry if they don't get it, which is saying there's an innate need in them. They need that, and if not, and we give it to them, and it makes us feel good giving it to them as well as it makes them feel good. But that's what they need. The brain is telling them, this is what I need, get it. If that's what they need, then why do we stop giving it to them because of computers, because of screen time and all that? Something's amiss there. And I think just naturally, if we're looking at that, something's not right, something's out of order. Well, in the Bible, Proverbs chapter 22, verse 6 tells us, start children off on the way they should go, and even when they're old, they'll not turn from it. Well, it's a word of wisdom, it's insight, and it is truth. Because you raise a child a certain way, they're going to remember that way. What occurs there? Well, there's a habit forming in the brain. There's pathways that are growing. It's the normal wiring process of that infant, that 2-year-old that's needing the attention, needing this. That's normal. It's normal wiring. That's how we're designed. The DNA is stretching out the neural pathways, expanding those areas. The brain is growing in a certain way. It's saying this is the way it needs to be. This is the way it's supposed to be. And look at this picture. Here this young man's playing with his tablet, and everybody else is having fun around him, playing, exercising. You know, we look at it exercise, but they're having a good time. And he's sitting there with the tablet. And if we look at that, it doesn't look right, does it? It doesn't feel right if you just kind of look at that and think, wow, everybody's having fun. They're yelling, they're playing, they're kicking the ball. And he's alone, looking at the tablet, pushing the buttons, scrolling, and whatever he's doing. What's the brain doing? For the others, the brain is growing, expanding in a natural way. For him, it's growing, but it's different. It's not growing and expanding in the way that the others are. So right away, you see him separate. You see him apart from the others. There's a bond missing there, isn't there? There's a connection missing. And as that development grows, that connection is inhibited, and we'll be speaking about that. If it's inhibited, then you're going to have trouble with relationships in the future. And yeah, you can be smart, you can do well with computers and all that, but you still have to get along. And if you're not getting along, then you're stuck alone on the computer. Well, what happens then? Well, we're going to get into that later. We don't need that because it's not helping. We need balance, and we want to keep a balance. And so we need to look at this now, early on, with this newness of computers. You know, at my age, there's been so many changes in my lifetime, in our lifetimes of those of us that have been around a while. I mean, it's unheard of. Never happened before, so many changes in a single lifetime. And your lifetime, no matter how old you are, is changing rapidly as well. Never happened that way before. We have to do something about it because it's in control. We need to take control back of managing those changes in a way that's healthy for us, in a way that's healthy for our children. And that's why we're talking about this subject. The mind is a masterpiece of cognitive development. And when I think of the mind, I often think of trees and the roots of a tree and how they grow and how they need stress. They need the wind to blow. Without the wind, trees will not dig their roots deep in, and the slightest breeze will knock them over. The slightest problem tumbles them. No different for the brain with children who become adults. If their roots don't grow deep, if you don't expand their abilities in an overall way, the way that the DNA is intended to, the next stress, the issues of life, topple them over. And what do? They escape to feel better. Maybe they escape deeper into the computer stuff, or maybe they escape to drugs, to alcohol, or other unhealthy things, gambling, pornography, and so on, which is also suggesting to us that those issues are going to get worse in the future. They're not going to get better because of what we see happening today. And if we don't maximize our learning in those areas and improve those areas, we're in big trouble in the future. And so that's why we have to look at these things today. So cognitive development unfolds through exploration, play and social interactions. I recall when I was little, now my parents, when they moved to this country, I was a year old, and they built a motel on the beach in Daytona Beach. And I was on the beach every day, and I was by myself. I guess in Europe, that's what they do. They let the kids go and off they go. And I was playing, and it was a big motel, so there was a lot of space. And I was on the beach playing in the sand and doing this and doing that. I was exploring. I was playing. And I had social interactions with the other kids that came to stay at the motel, and we would play together and have a good time. Without exploration, we curl up, we turn inward. And if we're turning inward on iPads or tablets or whatever it might be, if we're turning inward on that, are we expanding? Are we exploring? We're exploring in a specific area of knowledge or whatever it might be, but not in that area of experiencing everything that we could be experiencing, which doesn't make us whole and complete. It makes us finite instead of expanding what we know. Proverbs 22:6 that we just spoke of underscores the importance of nurturing young minds. And there are many other passages in the Bible that speak of that, and many other evidences that we have of research and other things that tell us the importance of children being able to explore, to play, to have that social interaction. Digital media's rise has disrupted natural development processes and brain wiring. The brain is actually getting rewired, and that's not a good sign because that's not the way we were created to be. That's not the way the DNA is. And things are happening that I don't think it's changing the DNA. I think it's changing the way we utilize our DNA. It's narrowing our abilities to relate to the world around us, which is also suggesting we're going to make not so many great decisions in the future. Decision making is going to be poor, not as wise as it once was. And I think we're seeing that today, aren't we? With some of these very poor decisions around the world, not only in our country, but around the world as well. Silly things, stupid things you think, and yet it makes things worse instead of better. And then you say, well, why did they do that? To them, that was wisdom. That was the right thing to do. Well, but that's part of this adjusting that's occurring where thinking isn't as whole as it could be. We're not grasping as much information. We're just grasping a little thread here instead of the bigger picture of things. And so we make decisions based on the little thread, and we don't realize the consequences of not addressing everything else. So the vital role of play is a cornerstone to childhood. Play is crucial in cognitive, social, and emotional development. Human brain development spans from early childhood to the mid-20s. Even in the fetal growth, it's expanding. And from beginning all the way through life, brain development is expanding. One way or another, it's growing. Play teaches conflict resolution, physical skills, and community bonding, along with whatever else. I had a good time when I was playing as a child. I had a good time in my youth. Maybe a little too many good times. I always call myself a late bloomer because I had so much fun in childhood, playing, doing whatever, exploring, I was on my bicycle going everywhere all the time. Well, maybe not spending so much time reading and studying and doing all those things. So I kind of started a little later as a result of all that. But that's what we do. And as we do it, we're gaining wisdom, we're gaining knowledge, we're gaining understanding of other people, we're gaining understanding of ourselves. And look at these kids having a good time. You watch your kids in the front yard, in the backyard, or you take them to the park and they're having a good time. And doesn't it make you smile? Because they're smiling, because they're having fun. It makes you feel good. So it's catchy, isn't it? You know, the Bible tells us, do unto others what you would want them to do to you. In other words, say, be good to others. If you want them to be good to you, well, play. If you'd like to play, play, enjoy, because that makes you enjoy when they're enjoying as well. You feel good giving, in other words, not taking. Taking is selfishness. And when we focus on just looking at a computer or a tablet, we're taking. And, well, are we benefiting? How much are we benefiting from it? Again, we need this. It's the future. We need to learn it. We need to gain as much knowledge as we can in it, but we need balance as well. Play is the work of childhood. It's what we're supposed to do in childhood. And play is in opposition to screen time. It's a paradigm shift that's occurring. Phone-based childhoods replace play-based childhoods. Screen time leads to impaired social, cognitive, and emotional skills. Again, we need balance there, not just solely focused in one area. I perhaps may have solely focused on play when I was young. Well, that was maybe a little bit of a problem. I became a late bloomer as a result, but I got there eventually. If they're just focusing on screen time, well, are they going to be late bloomers? Are they going to have the opportunity to expand and be able to get along and enjoy the fruits of relationship in the future? The asynchronous and performative nature of social media inhibits connection. It prevents it. It builds a wall. And then will that child, as they become adolescents and into early adulthood, will they be able to tear down that wall, open it up so they can get through? I'm sure some will, and many won't. So there's a role in social learning. Childhood is an apprenticeship of adulthood. You think of apprentices, let's say the electrical apprentice, the plumber apprentice, the carpenter apprentice. They're learning from the expert, from the one who's already learned and who has the talents, and they're developing their skills to be an expert in the future. Children are developing their skills. They're the apprentice to the parent. The parent is teaching and the child is learning. But if the parent isn't teaching, who's teaching them? You know, the tablet, the screen time, how much are they learning from that in helping their apprenticeship to become the expert adult that they need to be in the future? Cultural learning occurs through conformist and prestige biases. So in other words, inclinations. We're inclined to do what we've learned. So if we're raised in a dysfunctional home, severely dysfunctional home, I think all homes are dysfunctional to a point. If you're raised in a severely dysfunctional home, well, you're inclined to be dysfunctional in adulthood. If you're raised in a healthy home, if things going well, you're inclined to have a healthy home in the future and to be healthy. There's inclinations there. Social media hijacks those inclinations. It hijacks these innate learning programs. Again, I just have to keep reminding you that we're not saying do away with it. We're saying balance it somehow. Find a way to keep a balance going for your kids. The sensitive period of cultural learning spans from 9 to 15, from ages 9 to 15. Now we're going to get into detail on those things next time. But even the earlier years are so important. 9 to 15 is more cultural learning. How do we get along with our peers? How do we get along with the social things in our life? Adolescents move their social lives online during these critical years. Not a good thing. When they should be focusing more on getting along in interactions with others, practically all their focus is on the screen. Gosh, what's going to happen when they're adults? What's their inclination going to be as adults? What's their inclination going to be as parents to their children? Not so good. So we want that balance to occur where brain development is not only in childhood, but it's all the way through. Even at my age, my brain is still developing as far as I'm concerned. I'm still growing pathways. I'm still learning. I read, I study, I interact, I do this, I do that. I'm exploring still, and that's helping me to continue my growing. You want to continue your growing all through your life. And so it's not just in childhood or adolescence, but it's throughout life that the brain is moving those pathways, growing those pathways. And yeah, some of them are going to die off, but the ones that die off, well, let's grow some new ones. Let's stimulate ourselves by learning some new things, constructive things, to help that expansion to continue. Yet the challenges in screen media are costly. Loss of attunement and synchrony with peers and family, erosion of family and local community culture, overexposure to influencers with questionable values. I just had a conversation the other day with someone whose son was over-influenced on the screen by someone and got into legal trouble as a result of it. Who are those people on the other side of that screen? Do you know who they are that your children are interacting with? And if you're not involved with your kids in their screen time, you're not going to know. And the offenders out there, they know. They're going to get away with what they can. The takers out there, they're going to get away with what they can. We can't prevent that. We can't stop them. There's always going to be those individuals, but we can help protect our kids in buffering them as best we can in a healthy way, not overprotecting, but balancing. And so there's monitoring going on when it's necessary. Reintroducing balance. Restoring healthy cognitive development is reintroducing that balance. Encourage vigorous play and limit screen time. It's hard to limit screen time. I admit that with the kids. Yet if you start early, it's easier. If you start later, it's harder. And most people, it's later. So if you have the opportunity to start early, start early. If you don't, manage it as best you can. Work with their cooperation as best you can. And find that balance in the way that the both of you, the parent and the child, can work it out. Foster authentic social interactions. And basically, I guess that's saying, okay, they got to have that screen time, but you know what? Okay, there's an hour. Now it's time to go to Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, basketball, soccer, baseball, playground, activity, whatever might be out there, you've got to take them out there and you have to do things with them. And that's the job of parenting. If we want to have healthy children, if we want our children to do well, we've got to put that time and effort into it. And we might be, and I'm sure we're very busy. Everybody's very busy. And most families, both the mom and the dad are working, and it's difficult. Still, we have to do it. If we don't do it, somebody's going to suffer. Which one's going to suffer? Well, it might be one or the other. It might be both the parent and the child in the future. So reaffirm cultural and biblical values in the family life. That's also saying, get them to church. If you don't go to church, if you don't go to a church that has a children's church, find one. But if you're not going to church, you're not helping your kids to develop in that way, socially and spiritually. So that's another activity that they could be going to and participating in, youth groups at church and so on. So I think every church should have a wonderful youth group for their children, for the church. And some are big ones, some are small ones. But if you're putting the effort in it, it's going to be good, and they're going to enjoy it, and they're going to look forward to it, which is helping them develop that cultural, social ability as well as spiritual abilities, getting them away from the screen and the bad influencers on the screen. Train up a child in the way he should go, as we said earlier with the Bible scripture. So moving forward, it's balance. It's finding that balance. That's the key. Integrate traditional learning with mindful technology. Protect the sensitive period of cultural learning. Equip families and educators with tools to nurture healthy development. It's a call to action. We have to take action now. It's really kind of a little late, but we have to start at some point. And if we're going to start now, let's do it. Let's take some action. Let's change up things a little bit. Advocate for play-based childhood rooted in spiritual and cultural values. Get those kids out there to be active in doing those things. Zechariah chapter 8, verse 5 in the Bible tells us, "And the streets of the city shall be full of boys and girls playing in its streets." Now, of course, today we don't want them out there in the streets, but back then that was okay. This verse paints a beautiful picture of peace and restoration in Jerusalem, where children can play freely without fear. It represents God's promise of security, joy, and a flourishing community. Verses similar to Zechariah collectively illustrate the children's play reflects joy, peace, divine blessing. In other words, it's a good thing for kids to play. The Bible has emphasized that. Researchers emphasize that. Brain studies emphasize that. So why aren't we letting them play? Why are we just letting them look at the computer or have all that screen time? They're not playing. Playing isn't just playing on the computer, it's interacting with others. It's the social activity. It's the experiences that they're having, because as we have these experiences, we gain wisdom, we gain insights, we gain understanding, which leads to insights and wisdom. We also gain knowledge, I guess, as well, as we learn about this person or that type of person, whatever, people we like or don't like, people to avoid, people to be around, people that we know are safe, and people to watch out for. That's how we learn these things. Screen time doesn't necessarily teach us those things. Whether it's Zechariah's vision of a restored Jerusalem or Jesus welcoming children as examples of faith, play symbolizes freedom, trust, and a beauty of God's creation. Why do you think they don't want you to play? Why do you think they don't want the kids to play? Well, there is a group out there that is anti-God, anti-Christ, anti-faith, perhaps. Play? No. Let's keep them in this zone where they don't have any of this other stuff going on. Is that the influence you want over your kids? We don't want that. Cognitive development and screen media is essential that every parent needs to learn more on how to address it. Well, I hope this has been a blessing for you today. May your troubles be minor, blessings more, and happiness come through your door. We'll see you next time. God bless. Please give us a like or subscribe. Keeps us motivated. Bye.